So question 5 says, studies show that as women grow older, they tend to have lower bone density. Which of the following could be used to examine the relationship between age and bone density? So age is one of our variables, which is quantitative. Bone density is our other variable, which is quantitative. And how we analyze the relationship between two quantitative variables is with a scatter plot. 6 says, before we go on, a side-by-side box plot would be one categorical and one quantitative. Two-way table is two categorical, and a bar chart is one categorical variable. 6 says, what type of statistical test could be used to test for an association between immigrants' continent of origin and whether or not they attended college? So this is a categorical variable with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 categories. And this is a categorical variable with 2 categories. So if we have 2 categorical variables and one of them has more than 2 categories, then we need to do a chi-square test. A z-test is for 1 or 2 categorical variables with 2 categories each. So t-test would be if we had a quantitative variable. And so B wouldn't work because this one has more than 2 different categories. 7 says a certain manufacturer claims that 50% of candies they produce are brown and that candy pieces are randomly placed into bags. Sam plans to buy a large family-sized bag of these candies and Carrie plans to buy a small fun-sized bag. Which bag is more likely to have more than 70% brown candies? So 50% is our population proportion. And we want to know which person who buys the smaller bag or who buys the larger bag is more likely to get a number of brown candies further away from the truth. So the smaller and smaller the bag, the larger and larger the standard error, the more and more unalike the sample is to be to the population. So there's more variability in proportions among smaller samples, so Carrie is the one who's more likely to have 70% brown candies. 8 says a sample of 50 students were given a word search to complete. The time in minutes it took to complete the word search was recorded for each student. The 5-number summary is 1 minute, 2.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes, 6 minutes, and 10 minutes. For statements A through E, determine which statement is true or false. A says the distribution is skewed to the right. So what we want to do is we kind of want to compare the two ends. So between the minimum between the median and 1 minute, the minimum is 2.5, and between the median and the max is about 6.5. Since the difference is much bigger on the right tail, on the right end, that means it's going to have a long right tail, so it is going to be skewed to the right. So A is true. B says the mean is probably less than 3.5 minutes. Well, if it's skewed to the right, that means that the mean is going to be bigger than the median, so it's going to be greater than the median. So this one is false. C says the percentage of students who took between 1 and 3.5 minutes is the same as the percentage of students who took 3.5 and 6. So between 1 and 3.5, that's the minimum to the median, so that's 50%. And between 3.5 and 6 is between the median and Q3, which is 25%. So they're not the same. So C is false. D says true or false, the interquartile range is 3.5. So interquartile range is Q1 minus Q3. So 6 minus 2.5 is 3.5. So that statement's true. And then E says true or false, for 95% of the students, the time to complete the word search was within 3.5 minutes of the mean. So you can only use 95% for bell-shaped data. Well, in A, we said that it's skewed to the right, so we can't use the 95% rule. And then 9 says a telephone survey asked a random sample of 1,028 U.S. teens to name their favorite movie from 2012. Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2 had the highest percentage with 13% of teens in the sample ranking it as their favorite movie. Which of the following are true? So they took a random sample of U.S. teens, and who we generally take a random sample of is going to be our population of interest unless they say so otherwise. So I is correct. It says 13% is a parameter. Well, this 13% is from the sample So that means 13% is a statistic, not a parameter. So 2 is wrong. And then 3 says, this sampling design should provide a reasonably unbiased estimate for the true percentage of all U.S. teens who'd rank this movie as their favorite. So it says the telephone survey asked a random sample. The keyword here is random, so as long as they took a random sample, it should provide a reasonably unbiased estimate, because that's what random samples do, is they're generally unbiased. So the statements 1 and 3 are both correct. So the correct answer would be B.